Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales here in sunny Southern California. That gentleman out there is
Jim Johnston in also sunny Youngstown, Ohio.
of course, Jim survived a tornado the day before today, so he won't tell you.
Yeah, it's not. We've had quite a few natural disasters and man-made disasters up here in the last couple months. So the sun is out. It's a nice day. No wind is blowing. No trains are derailing. Things are fine. We're gonna just take that as a win.
There's no black clouds hanging over anything right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now the only black cloud that we have hanging over us, Jim, is this black cloud. We are going to be tasting and dissecting. That's right, Gran Centenario. And not just any Gran Centenario. This is the Gran Centenario Cristalino. That's right, folks. The Cuervo family has decided to send us this used to be one of the more revered brands ever. And I think a lot of people still believe that it's made the same way as it used to be, but it isn't. And now this is I got to say, Jim, this came in let me show you the box this came in, folks. Beautiful. Jim was telling me off camera, this looks like a lot like those single malt Scotch boxes that you're used to.
Yeah. This is a lot of times when, Scotch comes in a box like this and the higher end stuff comes in a package where, there's a little notch of wood here at the top to hold the top of the bottle. And then you've got a little padded holder here at the bottom.
Yeah, this isn't wood though. This is like some kind of rubber, synthetic. It's not real.
Yeah,
it's synthetic rubber.
Yeah,
but, it holds
whatever.
It's a beautiful color. I think the packaging right off the bat. I just want to nominate it for brand of promising. Brand of promising packaging. It is gorgeous. The pack. I'm not going to lie. It's beautiful. It's eye catching. You're dressed in the same color,
right? I did not. I didn't figure that when I did this, but I opened the bottle. I was like, oh, this kind of matches me. But
that's kind of match it.
The bottle is substantial. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's
nice wood stopper, very hefty. A lot of thick glass at the bottom. So it comes. The vehicle it's delivered in is very nice.
The vehicle it delivers in. Why don't we? I took the seal off of mine because I don't want to be fighting with it, but oh wow, it's a cork composite. It actually almost smells real. I mean, it's got a decent smell to it. I know, folks, for those of you who are just tuning in or listening to us, you're not aware about what goes on with the Cuervo lines and all that. We'll get into it, but as usual, we're going to taste the juice first. Then we'll give you all the ins and outs and all the stats and stories. I'm using a Stasso Jarrito for tequila, and so is Jim. So we're going to pour some in the glass here. Remember, folks, this is a Cristalino. Oh, look, I got bubbles.
Pretty thick glass top, too. This is
a
hefty bottle.
It kind of reminds me of the original Maestro Dobel. Was a very substantial bottle. It's not like the bottle that they have now that's a lot lighter. I used to call it the Terminator of tequila bottles because it was really heavy. You could use it for like a weapon or something.
Yeah.
So, wow, you gave yourself a decent pour. Let's see what kind of legs and tears we got. I can't see any right now. Oh, there they go.
A little bit there. A little bit.
There they are.
It's hard to give myself a light pour because that bottle it's hefty.
Yeah, you can't. It's designed well. I think with the idea of the look, it looks like a lot of scotches. You're going to serve it in a rocks glass and not do what we're going to do with it and dissect it. And it's got some decent legs and tears.
Actually does a little bit.
Yeah. And that I noticed when I poured it, it looked a little bit like an off color. Does it look like a bit of an off color to you?
It's for me, it's not really off so much as that. I mean, I would say that there's just a little bit, the light is not coming through it as it would if this were a Blanco and naturally clear.
Right. So there's some sort of, with a Cristalino, there is some sort of filtering process, and we'll discuss that filtering process a little bit later. But there's a filtering process that removes some of the color, most of the color, and supposedly some of the characteristics of whatever wood it was aged in. And I will give you, more details as we go through it. It's a tinge of some sort. And I want to say it's like a yellow or a light, very light green. I don't know. It's kind of odd.
It's just a very faint hay color. Very, very, very,
Okay.
very faint.
I'll buy
They
that.
have not stripped out 100% of the Anejo characteristics out of this.
No, and they're, if they did, why bother? Just call it
Right.
just serve it as a Blanco. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway, let's see what we got as far as a nose. Got some substantial alcohol.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Now, to be fair, this bottle's been sitting in my living room floor probably since November, early
Yes.
November of
At least.
2022, at least. So we're just getting around to it, folks. I'm sorry, but hey, we had to cut that. We actually cut our Brands of Promise line, our entries. I think it was July or August. And so this line, these series of tastings are for the 2023 Brands of Promise that we're doing now. I just get alcohol. I'm not getting anything else.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of the alcohol overpowering the nose, but a little of what I get is almost like a custard or a vanilla.
Ooh.
A little, but that's at the end of the alcohol. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting the alcohol so much that that's like an after nose portion of that kind of sweetness.
Yeah, there is an underlying sweetness in there.
Yeah.
Initially you're going to get a lot of alcohol, and I'm not calling it a burning alcohol. You're just getting alcohol. It's not like it's burning your nose hairs or,
Right.
singeing your eyebrows. Because it's not, it's only an 80 proof, but. And I want to say I'm getting some wood characteristics, but I'm not sure what kind of wood I'm getting. And as I will make some more descriptors. I will read some of the press that we got from the PR company that sent this to us. I think it's taking a while to open up too. These bottles have been sealed in our, on our shelves.
And this is starting to open up just a touch for me, and I'm getting a little bit of sweet citrus at the very end. I mean, you call it a floral citrus, even like an orange blossom or something like that, but it's very faint at the end right now.
And there's some sort of fruitiness there too. I get a little bit of fruitiness again at the tail end. It's not the alcohol is still very much present. Now there's that sweetness. And it's not citrusy for me so much as like some sort of stone fruit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm still getting enough of the alcohol that's why I feel like that alcohol has turned into a citrus tang on my nose, like if you smell lime juice real up close. But
okay,
the more I smell it, the sweetness is combined with the alcohol still. I think this needs to open up for a good 10 minutes.
It does, and it is starting to open up. To be fair, for me anyway, I'm beginning to get a little bit more of that sweetness that you were detecting. But for me, it's not citrus so much as like a stone fruit. I want to say peaches or plums or something. Something like that, or maybe an apricot, maybe an apricot.
Yeah. There's a
And it's at the bottom. It's really weird because as the alcohol diffuses, it's more at the bottom of the glass at the liquid. You really got to dig for it, which is rare with a jarrito, usually it just comes right up to you. I think you're right. This thing's got to be. I think it was designed to be served in like a rocks glass and just get diffused with a lot of air right away. Yeah, I'm just getting this mellow kind of fruitiness that's more of an apricot or peach. I'm not even
Almost
sure.
like if you smell a peach, like if you try to get the ripeness off of a peach, you don't get a peach scent, but you get a little sweetness off of the skin of the peach. That's what I get with some alcohol.
And not even a ripe peach. You're
Right.
talking about a one that still needs to ripen a little bit more. So you get that faintness of the peach
Right.
because it's not fully ripe yet.
I would say this is going to take a good 10 minutes to get to that point of really opening up to what the
Well,
nose profile should
While
be.
we're waiting, let's take a sip.
Why
Well,
not?
because sometimes you take a sip and it opens up even more as it evolves in the glass. It will evolve in your glass. But yeah, I'm ready to take a sip and see what we're getting here. Mm. 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 Boy, that alcohol is aggressive.
Oh, yeah. And the apple is there. Just at the beginning, the apple is there.
All right, and this is my first pass, and to be fair, I don't watch whatever the TJs do before we go on camera, but I always cleanse my palate. I make sure that I don't have anything spicy before I come out if I'm going to eat or whatever. So I'm real careful about that. And usually my first pass isn't as indicative as maybe my second or third passes, but I know that there was like the pepperiness from whatever agave is in there was aggressive, and so was the alcohol for me. But that's my first pass.
Right.
And there's a reason why we say that there's green apple here, because I'll read you the stats on what.
There's also an astringent quality to it a little bit for me, right in the middle.
It's in the middle, and then on the finish too. And that finish is still it's a long finish. Mm, 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 mm. There's an underlying sweetness at the rear and sides of the tongue.
Yeah. Yeah, it's white pepper and alcohol that kind of has a very mild anise midpoint there, just because I think when that alcohol sweetness, the apple sweetness and the alcohol get to the back of your palate, the only way it can actually finish is as a sort of fructose alcohol combination, which for me is anise. That's what that is.
Let me explain, folks, why we're talking about green apple. Okay, for those of you who are not aware of this line, this particular expression of Gran Centenario, it is. Let's see, we got this press release sent to us back on November 3rd. Wow, this has been a while. Let's see, Mexico's #1 tequila is announcing the launch of the smoothest expression to date and first Cristalino, the Gran Centenario Cristalino. Expertly crafted using the brand's proprietary process. Of course, they won't tell you what that is. It's called Selección Suave. Okay. Gran Centenario Cristalino uses the finest añejo and extra añejo tequilas matured in American oak barrels. Now, see, That's more about what I'm tasting. Okay. But a first for the brand, the blended aged tequila is then finished in Calvados casks. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Jim?
Yes.
Okay. For a few months before being filtered through a meticulous process with Mexican silver. Really? I don't know if I believe that. I don't know. Okay, but we did some research on the back end of this, okay? It transforms the aged tequila into a crystal clear liquid. I can't say that. The resulting spirit has the smoothness and depth of an aged tequila with hints of fresh apple and oak coming from the Calvados cask finish. Okay, so in my case, I asked Jim, who's got a wider palate than I do, what the hell is Calvados? I know it was a big deal back in the early 2000s, but I didn't pay attention to it because nobody had been aging tequila in unusual barrels, not even wine barrels at that point.
Right.
So you tell me, what the hell am I? What's a Calvados? What is it?
It's a French Normandy, to be exact, apple or pear cider brandy. But in this case, Calvados, the apple brandy, which will really have a very pronounced apple flavor to it. And I get that on this. I can taste that little bit of that apple brandy influence of the barrel. And I'm sure what you're getting from the oak, because they've stripped out a little bit of the char that comes off that barrel, is probably the tannic cellulose of that oak that imparts a little bit more of a wood sweetness to it.
Right.
But Calvados itself is, most Americans have had Applejack brandy of some sort. It's not a traditional Calvados, is not a flavored whiskey or a flavored brandy like you have Crown Apple or Jim Beam Apple.
Right.
It's actually used making cider to make into brandy, and the apple cider flavor of it stays very true to that brandy after it's done in the barrel process. So I get a little bit of that because Calvados has a natural apple, but a fermented apple flavor to it because it starts with cider.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't had that many ciders. I may have had one in my life because I'm just not a cider drinker. It is available usually during the fall. When I lived in New Mexico or even in Texas, apple cider was a big deal because, because of the fall harvesting and things like that. So you get a lot of fresh, but I just was never I know in the UK and in Ireland, I guess cider is a big deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a couple big time, especially in the UK. But in France, the cider that's a big deal. It's not consumed exactly the same way that the British and the people in the UK do it. Like Strongbow cider, you can get on tap almost. French cider is a lot more true to the apple cider flavor. It's got a little bit more sweetness on it. It's not quite as dry, but it is, when they make Calvados out of that cider to make the brandy, it does retain its apple characteristics quite a bit. So
are these brandies at a higher proof, barrel proof, 80 proof, or like liqueurs?
They're more of an 80 proof brandy. It's like a cognac or anything like that, where you would actually have that fermentation and that distillation come through from that. But it's really the cider that's the source of the brandy. Depending on how it's made and what the apples used and what kind of sweetness level it has, you still keep a lot of that flavor. And it's really, I've had a couple in my lifetime that are really very high end, good, nice to sip. It provides that little bit of apple sweetness on that brandy, but it doesn't lose the flavor profile. It sticks with it. So, and I can definitely tell that part of this nose, now that this is opened up, and part of this flavor profile is coming from that fermented apple. It's not like biting into an apple. It's fermented apple. It's fermented a hard apple cider flavor profile that's coming with this, because that barrel doesn't get to see a real apple at all. It gets to see fermented apple, then distilled and everything like that. But
Right.
if you're a hard cider fan, you will notice a flavor profile in here of that kind of cider apple in this.
Now, we also did some research on camera about the Mexican silver filtration. For those of us who are like some of the Cristalinos out there, they're using the charcoal filtered filtration. There's a gentleman, a chemical engineer that I'm aware of that I've interviewed before. Great guy, has some wonderful brands out there. One of them is Penta, and they make a great Cristalino, and he has a patented method that actually has a patent on how to make Cristalinos. So we don't know what's in it. I don't know how they're using it, but I thought that was BS. I thought it was bullshit. When I read it, Mexican silver. Okay. I know that as jewelry goes, Mexican silver is very sought after, more so than their gold. I know that for a fact from jewelers around the world that I know. But we did some research, and Jim did. Were they lying, or is that a real thing?
There are some vodka distillers that use silver, not necessarily Mexican silver, but there's a process where a lot of water filtration and a lot of spirit filtration uses, when they say silver, they're not putting silver ingots in there. The vessel they're using for the filtration is silver, because a lot of the carbon-based impurities are drawn out by that. They kind of tend to stick to it, and it removes it. I'm sure there's using some kind of charcoal in this as well, but the vessel holding is probably made out of some sort of silver. Either a portion of it is silver, or I doubt it's all silver, but part of that process is those carbon-based impurities are drawn out by that silver infusion with the charcoal. So I've seen a couple vodka brands that have used it, and a couple of even water purifiers, whole house water purifiers, that have nano silver in the filtration, because it's got an effect on the carbon and the impurities, which I think is drawing out that barrel, the char and the stuff that gives it that dark brown aged color.
So let me get this straight. The silver, it's very similar. It sounds to me very similar to some of the tequileros, some of the master distillers who prefer to distill their tequila in copper, or they'll use stainless steel with a copper wire, because copper adds another layer of complexity to the tequila, whether it adds some flavor or whatever. But in your case, you're telling me that this stuff removes impurities. So if maybe the Calvados is leaving a whole lot of because of the type of barrel that it is, and because of the way we describe what goes in that barrel, that a lot of that stuff needs to be drawn out, as well as the color and some of the flavor. So there, I guess, because it first of all, the press release says it's aged in the barrel, in the oak barrel first, and then polished and finished in Calvados, and then they remove that using the Mexican silver. So it's kind of odd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a PR. I mean, it's not what you say, it's how you spin it. But I don't know. We know, for instance, that everything that comes out of that distillery, it comes out of. In fact, I'll give you the NOM number. All right, that first we'll start with that. We are aware that they are industrially made, which means that they are using a diffuser. Okay, this is at one time the Jose Cuervo family had two separate NOM numbers. This one is 1122. This is the NOM number that is now the one NOM number where all of the whole umbrella goes under. And no one's ever seen that distillery. Everybody has seen Disneyland, but nobody has ever seen the other one. There are no tours. They don't allow anybody there, and we know that there's a diffuser. That's just, we know that. The old distillery is Disneyland. That's that's for the public, and that's where they used to make Jose Cuervo mixto, and they probably do some work out of there, but now it's all under one number. And those of us who have been Gran Centenario fans for a long time understand that there's a change in quality. We know that. When you use a diffuser, you're not really, your main cost is not in the prime material, the agave, because you notice we haven't said anything about the agave except in the sense, in the flavor, where you're getting, some of the spiciness, the white pepper. Some of that could be from the barrel, the Calvados barrel, or the whiskey, whatever whiskey barrel, oak barrel, that imparts the pepperiness in the liquid. But they're not spending the money on the process. They're spending the money on the barrel, the packaging. Oh, and the ads. Let me show you the ad here in a second. What you were going to say something? What are we getting? Is this even? See, now it's a lot sweeter on the nose.
Yeah, this nose has taken quite a while to open up. And I would say that one thing that I don't think is naturally conducive to agave on a nose is apple. Apple's got a very distinct fruit smell. Whereas if you had a mango, a peach, and an orange sitting there and you smelled all of them at the same time, there would be a little bit of a floral sweetness that goes with all of those that would be the same, whereas apple doesn't have that. And
this is turning into the nose I get now has become sweeter. And it's almost like a powdered sugar nose for me.
Yes. This is starting to smell like apple brandy smells like on its own.
Okay. I'm going to have to go into some apple. I'm going to have to go dive into your bar, man, because that's
I don't think we have any Calvados back here right now, but
Jim is he is my translator, because some of this stuff, I have no clue. And it sounds nice. It's got, the verbiage, the copy sounds great. It sounds grand. It sounds, but I don't get it, But I know what I smell, and it smells like powdered sugar to me now.
Yes, but you know what? That is going to be Have you ever smelled just a fresh baked apple pie?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But if you take that smell and you put the alcohol that comes off the nose when this is first opened, it's going to be really hard to get a true apple scent off of it, because baked apple and a fresh apple have it, but fermented apple, I think, is where that is not something that most people are used to, because the only way to get fermented apple smell is you're a cider drinker or rotting apple, which is unpleasant. I'm not going to call this unpleasant. This is fermented apple in a good way. This is a cider smell.
I will say that I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised, because
you as well.
The last Cuervo product you and I had was Pavito, which was in right before November, as a matter of fact. And it was supposedly their version of a Pechuga. It had nothing to do with Pechuga. There was no Pavito in it, and it was all orange liqueur.
It was almost like Sambuca.
Yeah, it was
heavy on an anise nose and flavor. And honestly, I would have rather had the piece of turkey they hung up than what it was going into on the liquid side.
Yeah,
I am pleasantly surprised by this.
I am too.
I have had this apple brandy from. There's an Apple Jack, in Ohio that is an apple brandy that does have a little bit of a sweetness to it. That's the apple flavor is a little fake. And then there obviously you've got apple infused every kind of whiskey, Crown, Jim Beam, everybody, apple.
Yeah.
This is this really did spend enough time in a legitimate Calvados barrel that the apple flavor, the fermented apple flavor in the nose that comes off of this, to me, seems legit. And it seems natural. The apple nose and the apple flavor off of this is not sugary apple, fake apple, chemical apple. This is like, they pull this off the barrel because when you put that in there to get that brandy, the sugars off that apple come into the barrel. I mean, they're in contact with that wood as it's maturing, and I'm pleasantly surprised by how they got that flavor into this. It's not, it does not seem fake to me.
No, again, the cost of making a tequila with a diffuser is not on the prime material. They're not paying full pop for those agaves. First of all, because they're Cuervo. You know, they got their guys under contract. But secondly, they're not using the aged 7, 8, 9-year-old agaves. They're not going to do that with this. Okay. I've always said that tequilas made with a diffuser always lend themselves to flavoring and barreling quite well, because the base material you wind up with first is vodka. It's nothing. So it's a clean slate and you can do whatever you want with it. So there is a cost in the barrel, there's a cost in the double barreling, there's a cost in using the Mexican silver. You know, that's where the labor cost is more involved. And of course, the packaging. And I would say that there's a reason why the alcohol is so aggressive. This is an aggressive alcohol for an 80 proof.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And the one thing that I would slight this for is the fact that as you're making it a Cristalino, you're stripping out any agave characteristic that should be there, and you are replacing it with this Calvados brandy apple alcohol nose and taste profile. But that being said, that's why I said when we typically do this agave thing and you put a peach and an orange and a mango next to each other, and you get that citrus or floral sweetness that comes off of agave. This is interesting because apple cider, apple brandy, takes on a sweetness that is not like any of those other things. You can tell it's got that hint of a fresh apple and a fermented apple sweetness that comes with it. So do we just not smell the agave? Or are we,
but here's
or are we getting something that is close enough that it's like, eh?
Here's what I will say. Very often, when we sample Blanco tequilas or even some mezcals, sometimes on the nose you will sense a stone fruit of a pear. It leans more toward a pear than an apple, and it's slight. And so what I'm thinking is, you know, a Highlands tequila or someplace where it's more floral and citrusy, and maybe somewhere in the middle between that golden triangle where some things are smell and taste like stone fruit, like pears and apples. And very often you'll see a descriptor that says you get a little bit of green apple. It's kind of like the tertiary, you know, aroma. And I say, geez, let's confuse people and let's just go with apple, because that way people might say it enhances whatever green apple should have been in the agave that isn't.
Maybe that's true. What I will say though is I can't nose this and not say anything other than that it is tequila. But I think that the influence of that apple brandy and that apple sugar enhances that, using that flavor profile and that nose, that apple nose. So if you put this in a regular old American oak barrel and then you strip this down, do I smell the agave the way I'm supposed to? I don't know if I would or not. I think this apple cider based brandy has a very unique impact on this, of imparting that, just that little bit of that sweetness that's supposed to come off the agave, but are are we missing it because it's pulling that apple and that apple brandy aged barrel flavor into this? I don't know. I can't sniff this and say this
No, I
doesn't
can't
lend
either.
itself to brandy or whiskey or cognac or any other liqueur. It does smell to me like it's got to be agave based. But am I actually smelling agave? Or is that apple essence used in this to kind of give that extra bit of that verdant green apple kind of nose that's on that Highland tequila, like you mentioned? I don't know,
Now,
because
is the mouthfeel thing to you?
it's I'm not going to say it's a really robust mouthfeel. It's not a very thick mouthfeel. It's not syrupy in any way. It's not. I'm not going to call it thin though. I'm not going to call it a thin mouthfeel, but it's not. It's not syrupy. It's not robust.
And now that it opens up, it's just more of that sweetness, that stone fruit sweetness.
But again, how much of this is coming from this very unique flavor profile that's been introduced into an agave spirit here? Because
Well, that's what I'm saying. That tequilas made with a diffuser, they're excellent for infusions. They really are. There are ready to drinks we've had that come out of another distillery that we know uses a diffuser, and they make some really great infused tequilas and ready to drinks and RTDs and margarita mixes and things like that. So it doesn't surprise me that this acquired so much of the characteristic of a Calvado, that because the base liquid, you know, it's agave vodka, it's agave vodka,
yeah,
in order for this to be tequila, it still has to have some sort of it still has to be made of 100% agave tequila. That's probably what it's going to say on the label. Otherwise, a CRT wouldn't,
so there's agave here
right. We know it
in
is.
some format. But what I'm thinking from I mean, I'm not somebody who lives 5 miles from Omaha Beach sniffing Calvados every day, like, oh, this is my drink. This is what I get. I've had it before. I've tasted it. I've tasted a couple different versions of it. One or two that are very high end and really well made, and XO style, brandy style Calvados. And I've had a couple that are
Mid-range.
like an American Applejack brandy that is not heavy on additives or anything like that, but it's just got a little bit more apple sweetness to it that seemed to me to make it more palatable for an American palate, make it more apple than brandy.
Okay.
Whereas the French are much more make it brandy, not apple. It's got an apple flavor and an apple infusion to it. If you set this down in front of me and did not tell me what it was and just put it in the glass and gave it to me like this, and I smelled this and I tasted it, I would ask you why this is an agave spirit. Why does this strike me as agave based? But then I would also say to you, is this made from apples? I just get, if this were a blind tasting and you did not tell me what was in my glass, the source, the style of liquor, the what they use to get the actual fermentation out of this, I would taste this and have an idea that maybe it was apples.
Well, I think maybe that's what they were going for.
Maybe. And I'm going to say this because if I were tasting this blind with absolutely no idea of what was going into the actual mash that you got your distilled liquid out of, And I'm not turned off by this because I actually enjoy Calvados. I like an apple brandy. I like that it's got a lightness and a sweetness that's still got a little bit of a fermented sugar, fermented apple, flavor imparted to it. So it's apple cider that's not that ridiculously sweet, and then the distillation process of it gives it that brandy quality that's very, very nice for sipping, which I'm not totally against this. I'm just not sure.
I'm not either. I
if
have to
what
agree
I'm
with you.
I'm stumped by this because it's not and every time I nose this as it opens up, it changes just a little bit.
I have to say that, in the past, we've rated tequilas made with a diffuser. We've RTDs and things like that. I've always said, I'm good with that. I really am. If you're going to do a diffuser, do something like that. This is the first time I've actually had an infused tequila from the Cuervo family, because we go back to the Pavito exhibit A.
That was terrible.
That was awful.
That just wasn't good.
No, it wasn't good. This is good.
This is good. And honestly, this is the first time I think we've ever had anything. Calvados Vero is very specific. That's American oak. Can be bourbon, it can be Tennessee whiskey, it can be used for Scotch or Irish whiskey, it can be used 3 or 4 times for red wine or brandy. But we've never had that apple element in it. I've never had that. Nope. I've had apple brandy, I've had Calvados specifically, I've had American apple brandy. I've never compared it nose-wise or flavor-wise to any agave spirit. But now that I know I'm supposed to smell agave and taste agave off of this.
Well, nobody says you have to.
Well, but my mind, when you say I'm pouring you tequila, is going to look for certain characteristics off that agave that should come through. And without a diffuser, it's not there. But
not totally against this either.
This Calvados apple thing is replacing what I would have looked for on the agave side enough that I don't say this isn't tequila. It is.
Yeah.
It's tequila. It's got a gnome number. It says it's 100% de agave. It's got to be tequila.
Yeah, scientifically, when they run it through the lab, chromatography, it's going to have to. It's got to show agave sugars. Otherwise, you can't sell this as tequila. Of course,
it walks like a duck.
It's not like you're going to tell you any different, but
it quacks like a duck. It tastes like an apple.
But he shits like a duck too. I don't get it. Yeah.
But maybe the genius of this, dude, maybe the genius of this is that the Calvados and the apple, that green apple Highlands tequila flavor profile and nose, that's distinct but not dominant in a well-made non-diffuser tequila. That's what this has introduced into this liquid because of that Calvados barrel.
Now, is it just me, or is it coating your palate? Because I've had a couple more.
The front of my palate, my lips a little tingle, but it was tingling and it left behind that brandy, apple brandy sweetness that I'm baffled by this, because I don't want to say that they found a way to mask this with a fake agave, but I'm starting to think that maybe apple cider or apple brandy has some agave flavor profile components that are just blending the right way with this.
Sure.
I'm baffled by this.
It does. I mean, again, the beauty of being a master distiller working with a diffuser is you've learned eventually how to mask it, how to hide it, how to blend it efficiently enough to where, you know, the average consumers, the average guy's not going to dissect this for, you know, for as long as we have. But we took the hit, folks. We took the hit, so you don't have to, because
I'm baffled by this. I'm really surprised because I knew what I was putting in this glass when we poured it in here. It's an agave spirit. It's tequila. It's 100% de agave, but it is diffuser. But I've never, and I'm not like, again, everything you see behind me, there's not a single thing back there that's got apple in it of any kind. There's no apple brandy. I might only have one regular brandy back there that would be a grape varietal brandy, something coming from, you know, the French wine grapes that become good brandy. I probably only have one real brandy back there anyway. Everything else would be whiskey, American, Scotch, or Irish whiskey, some gin. Nothing that has a flavor profile specifically with brandy, or even more so apple brandy. But God, I'm so close to calling this good.
I know,
Because I don't know if I like it because it's Calvados or if I like it because it's tequila that has used that flavor profile to give it the kind of depth we were looking for. Does that make sense?
it makes total sense to me. It's the first time that I've ever had a tequila made in a diffuser that has baffled me, because some of them, you either like them because they're infused with something that they say it's infused with, and I'm okay with that, or it's just so bad that it's you know, you just want to laugh it out of Dodge because it's so bad. And I've had a few of those from one
And
distillery.
also, this is probably the first thing that I've ever had that's been put in a Calvados barrel that wasn't actually Calvados. So how do I know that somebody didn't think of, let's amplify that apple, fermented apple flavor that comes with the sweetness of, you know, brandy's got sweetness more so than bourbons and whiskeys would, because it comes from that fruit instead of a grain-based distillate. But
well, you know, even if they used additives in this thing, even if they use glycerin in this thing,
yeah,
it'd be hard to detect, because you know, again, you're using a specific barrel that's got a specific flavor profile that held a specific liquor in it. So it masks whatever. They could enhance whatever they wanted. They could enhance the pepperiness. They could enhance the apple. They could enhance. They did something to the alcohol, because I will say the alcohol is fairly aggressive. Even as it opens up, it's still got that numbness and pepperiness, and it is coating the palate. And again, the Calvados will do that anyway, right?
Yeah. So, and that's what I don't get. And that's what I'm like, what do I do with this? Because I don't get a strong additive sense from this. I don't get
I don't either.
I really do feel like what I am tasting here and what I'm getting in on the nose, and when I put it in my mouth and swish it around a little bit, that a fake flavor profile because it's got additives in it, or is it just picked up enough of what I really enjoy about brandy and specifically about Calvados that this has pulled all of that out of that barrel, because it is kind of the blank slate of a diffuser tequila. I don't know.
So
Probably going to sit here the rest of the night and just try to
yeah,
figure out.
it's just
what I'm getting, because I don't dislike this.
I
I
don't
just
either,
don't know why I feel like it's
but I
not
don't.
something that I was expecting.
I will say that I can't nominate it number one as a brand of promise because it's so unusual and confusing. Because again, what do you do with this? Because here's the thing. Here's the MSRP on this: $79.99, 80 proof.
That's a bottle of scotch. That's a 12-year-old bottle of
Right.
scotch.
Yeah, and so here's the thing too, uh, uh, Jim, for that kind of money, you're not going to pour this in a cocktail, are you?
No, but I wouldn't pour this in a cocktail anyway, because I think that this flavor profile, I don't know. I just don't. I don't get it.
It's confusing. It really
It's
is.
very confusing, because the one thing you don't put into anything that is based on apple or pear is citrus. And most of your tequila cocktails are going to have a citrus element to them.
Right.
Lime, lemon, orange, grapefruit, something, but also.
Well, anybody making a apple teeny, could you replace
Could be
this
a
with the apple
martini
teeny?
based cocktail or
Yeah.
a.
I will say that it is coating my palate more and more. The sweetness is sticking around. The Calvados barrels, they roll those like they do with rums and sherries. They roll those in the what the hell is the additive? The glycerin. They roll glycerin in those barrels prior to adding, the rum or whatever it is that they're the sherry, in some of those barrels. So maybe what there is residual glycerin from the barrel. I don't know. Because it's coating my palate, folks. I will say that.
Believe me, it's not a you and I taste tequila. When I'm not doing that, I'm a whiskey guy, and brandy is something that I've tasted. I've enjoyed it. I've had experience with it enough to say what I like and dislike about the kinds that I've had and the kinds that I've enjoyed and the ones that I didn't so much. And Calvados is not foreign to me at all, but it's also not something that I would say that if you ask me, did I have an apple brandy last year? Probably not. The last time I had it was maybe a couple years ago at a dinner afterwards. Somebody served it. It was complimentary to what they were serving. I can appreciate it. I do know that the one thing I've always remembered about the times I've encountered these apple brandies, Applejack or Calvados or anything like that, is that it's a very distinct flavor profile. That apple profile is very in a league of its own. It's just not the apple imparts something that most of the time I'm not going to say, oh, this just tastes just like that other brandy or one of these whiskeys or something like that. It's I'm so confused by this. I'm so confused by this.
I'm so confused. Yeah, I can't nominate it as a brand of promise because if you're looking for agave, if you're looking for some
I don't think you're going to find it.
of tequila, you're not going to find it, and you'll be disappointed. Now, if you're an apple brandy person, I think Jim, probably this merits you finding a barrel or a bottle of Calvados or an apple brandy and revisiting.
Yeah, I think so, because I think that if you're a whiskey drinker, this is not going to catch you on the whiskey side.
No.
But I would even say that if you're a brandy or a cognac person, this isn't going to have the depth that a brandy or a cognac is going to bring, because you're not going to have that grape-based distillate that then spends its time in the barrel. I think this catches enough of the apple side of that Calvados barrel that this stands on its own as some sort of sipping beverage.
Sipping agave spirit. Maybe if they'd have called it an agave spirit, it would be more acceptable, more
I wouldn't even say that calling it an agave spirit is what gives it the definition. I mean, I would not taste this and say this is completely tequila. If you told me that it came from tequila because of the notes of the sweet, floral, little bit of flavor profile that I get, I would believe it. But if you told me it came out of a Calvados barrel, then I would say, okay, that makes sense. It's not Calvados, it's not brandy, it's
kind of like an ouzo. You know how like it's got that anise, that licorice, but it's so one-sided. It's one-sided is what I will say. It's not, if there's any agave in it, it's hard to detect at all, flavor and aroma wise, but it's one-sided like an ouzo, for me, like ouzo's got that licorice and anise, and you just know what it is. You can smell it a mile away, and that's ouzo, right? But this one is like, it's so unique. Maybe they're ahead of their time. I don't know.
So here's how I would classify this if I was forced to tell somebody this is what I would put this in a category of or something like that. This is and you said ouzo, which would be close to the same anise profile of a sambuca or something like that. This is an after dinner liquor.
A digestif.
Yes. It's what Calvados would be. I mean, that's the thing, that when Calvados was big and having its moment, it was an after dinner brandy. So if when you're done with dinner, you're a cigar and a brandy kind of guy, or a cigar and maybe not cognac, because cognac's got some real depth on it that I don't think this has. But if you like a sambuca and coffee, or if you like to drink an Italian or a Greek style ouzo liqueur or sambuca or a Calvados even, this makes perfect sense. If you like whiskey, or if you like an Anejo tequila, I don't think this is what you're going to like.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even pair this with a cigar. I couldn't.
There's a sweetness to that. I think it's more of a, this is more of a dessert style beverage. And I probably shouldn't call it a beverage because it's technically it's 100% de agave and it's tequila, but I don't know. This is just in such a weird standalone by itself flavor profile that I think it's, I would sip on this after, if I had a really nice kind of heavy meal, something that required a little bit of a digestive, I would be totally fine sipping on this and enjoying that little bit of an apple infused flavor profile that's there. I'm not against it in any way. I just don't know what to call it.
Yeah, I don't either. I think it's too confusing. They may have been better served as a liqueur. Maybe they should drop down the ABV to a liqueur size, like they have with, they make agavero. They make agavero with Damiana, and they also make agavero that's orange, like an orange liqueur. And maybe this would have been better served as a liqueur with this kind of flavor profile, because as a tequila, once you've had this, you're going to go, it's good, but where's the agave?
So there's no mixing. You don't mix this with anything, I don't think. You sip it. Maybe it's an after dinner sipper, but I just don't.
It's going to sit on your shelf for a while before you finish it.
Well, but here's the thing. I'm probably going to take a sip of this every couple hours for the rest of the evening. I just want to see what happens and see.
Yeah.
Maybe I will pour myself one more of these after I eat my dinner tonight and have a meal and have something on my palate that's got a little bit of heft, and I want to have a digestive to cleanse that and see if it does that, but I just don't know.
Yeah, too confusing, folks. It's a confusing Grant. That's I know we've been long in the tooth, folks, but we needed to go through that because you probably have not had this.
Right.
I don't know, unless you know what it is that you're getting, and that there's that, and what Calvados is, because a lot of folks don't even know what that is. I didn't know.
Right.
I
Right.
knew it existed.
It's not, no, because honestly, the folks that I know who would be big brandy drinkers, that's not their brandy. They're expecting a grape distillate for their brandy. They are wine and then brandy drinkers. So this is new, and I don't think any of their other bottles under this label use that barrel for anything else. This is
Yeah,
unique
it's
to
for
this,
this
right?
line.
Yeah.
Anyway, folks, that's our take on the Gran Centenario Cristalino. I know we were long in the tooth, but it needed to be done. If you've
Took you on
had,
a long journey to bring you right back to where you started from, of not knowing what you were getting.
yeah, we don't
we're
know.
not really sure either.
We
Sorry.
don't know what to call it. It's I don't hate it. I don't love it. But if you're looking for agave, if you're an oak head, you're going to be severely disappointed.
Yeah.
And I think they may have pigeonholed this one to a whole other market that I don't know what market they were after when they did this, because as you said, the usual brandy drinker is not going to gravitate to a Calvados based agave spirit. I don't understand who they were going after for $80. That's an expensive experiment,
Well, I would
filtered
say
through
that,
Mexican silver, folks.
correct, filtered through Mexico, whatever that. I don't think you need to tell anybody that. I don't think that gives anybody, oh my God, it was filtered through Mexican silver, guys. Let's go get it.
It's in the press release. Oh, Mexican silver. Hell, I got a pair of earrings made out of Mexican silver.
But I would say that if you are somebody who likes a good hard cider, a well-made hard cider, if you're somebody that likes a fruit wine that's not just grape, if you like a fruit wine, if you're a mead drinker where you like a little bit of that alcohol quality that has still some of the strong fruit and sweetness characteristics to it, and certainly if you like Calvados, and I like Calvados, I don't dislike it at all. I like Calvados.
Yeah, but it's not at the forefront of your brandy,
That
category.
is absolutely true. And there's none on my shelf right now. And I've got quite a few things on my shelf right now. There's probably only one brandy back there right now. But if you are somebody who likes a digestif in the Italian style, or if you are somebody who likes a mead or a fruit wine or a brandy that's not a real aged brandy, you're going to like this.
Hey,
if you were looking for an Anejo Tequila,
you really got to be, you got to severely niche down to be able to like this thing, because that's a niche. For $80, I think it's too big a niche for me. I'm probably not going to recommend it, but you guys do it. You guys taste it. If you've had it before, tell us what you're doing with it. If you're making a appletini with it, great. Leave us a comment. Give us a like on the video. This is probably the most in-depth of a review I've ever given Cuervo, but I gotta say, I don't hate it either. So you guys tell me, do you hate it? Do you love it? Is it in the ballpark? I don't know. It's not something I'm not in that niche, and I don't think that Jim is either. But we wouldn't, I wouldn't kick it out of bed either for eating crackers in bed.
If somebody did not tell me what this was, poured it for me and said, try this. This is our family's, house liquor.
Yeah. I
would not be upset sipping it and enjoying it. I would have quite a few questions about where it came from and how they got it. That's my only thing.
Yeah, exactly. I would too. And maybe they went after the European market. Maybe this is going to go really well in the UK and Ireland, in Scotland. I don't know. I don't know about Scotland. Maybe not. But
this might do better in the European market, like in France and Italy and Spain, where they're used to more of a brandy-based digestif than they would, because And
even then, you're still niching yourself down, because there are so many good brandies in Spain and Portugal, and and this would be way down on that list, in my opinion. But that's our take. That's Gran Centenario Cristalino, folks. They did their best. I think they really wrapped up a lot. If you've had it and tell us what you're doing with it, but that's our take. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. That guy out there is.
One confused Jim Johnson in Youngstown, Ohio.
You have been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media. Hey, sorry for taking so long, but we took one for the team because we thought it was necessary. I have to say, as a diffuser made tequila, and I'll put that in quotes now, air quotes. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't go looking for it either. Okay, so that's my take on it. But that's our take. Again, folks, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course. And whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.